planning is the art and science of figuring out where your ads need to run, how long they need to run for, and how frequently they need to be shown to your target audience to be successful. We're usually starting with the goal in mind. So what is it that you want these ads to accomplish for you? Are these what we call top of the funnel ads that are designed to create brand awareness and work in concert with other marketing tactics lower in the funnel? Or are these direct response ads that need to really work very hard at the bottom of the funnel to get people to take an immediate action when they see the ad? Or maybe they fall somewhere in the middle. And so they're not true brand awareness, but they're not DR ads. They're going to work in concert with other lower funnel tactics. Those are some of the things that we consider when we're doing a media plan for a client. The more defined we can make that audience, the better we can target the ads, the better the return on ad spend will be. So for us, it's all about planning and forecasting what we want to accomplish before we even start looking at where we might place ads for a client. Once we identify those things, then we'll start looking at where can we reach this target audience, what are the best tactics, tools, publishers out there to reach the audience that our client needs to get to. Once we complete the planning process and we identify all of those elements, we really then get into the buying process. Now we have an idea of where we want to place the media, and then we start reaching out to the appropriate parties. In some cases, those are self-serve platforms like Facebook or LinkedIn. They have self-serve tools. In other cases, we're buying direct to publisher, meaning we're going to websites, let's say, for example, the New York Times or the wallstreetjournal.com, and buying ads directly on those websites. And other times we're using a trading desk or we're buying this media programmatically. Programmatic ad buying is a really cost-efficient way to buy ads and to still appear on some primary publisher sites like some of the ones that I just mentioned. We really need to dig into who the target audience is. And some of the ways we do that are things that might seem obvious, like identifying gender, identifying other demographics like where these people might reside. Then we dig into things like annual household income, but we go beyond that and we dig into things like spending and buying behavior, previous types of purchases that a consumer has made, recent purchases that a consumer has made that might indicate they need a product or service that you're selling. So in a very simple example, there is data out there that we can purchase to tell us whether people have just purchased a new home. If you're selling new home services, that could be anything from alarm systems to cable services for your home to an interior decorator or painters. We can then target those people based on that recent purchase because now we know that they're likely to need other services and products that many home buyers need. Another way we dig into the target audience is to really look at customer data. So if you're an established business and you have customer data and a database of past purchases that might be indicative of future behavior, we analyze that data as well. And last but certainly not least, we often try to identify personas. If we can create a persona, a fictitious person that might look like your typical target audience, that helps us also further zero in on your target audience, where they might be on the web, and other behaviors that might indicate they're likely to purchase a product or service from you. Big brand awareness campaigns have very different budgets than maybe smaller to medium-sized direct response campaigns. So we really spend a lot of time analyzing that with our clients and determining exactly what kind of campaign we need to run to make your business and this particular media plan successful for you. Another consideration will be creative assets. There are a plethora of places where you can advertise today. There's podcasts, there's CTV, there's over the top, there's YouTube, there's Google Ads, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn, there's Twitter, and the list goes on and on. Some of this might be limited by the creative assets that you either have or that you have the budget to develop. So while you may think a great big video campaign sounds exciting and like it would work well for your product, you also need the budget to create those video assets. Of course, we work with our clients on how to get those done. And the style of video you want, for example, may dictate whether or not we have the budget to do it. Then there's also the self-serve platforms where we can create ads for you right inside the platform. So we can create what I'll call more traditional banner ads that we can serve through traditional means out to the web. So, you stand a banner at the top of the page or down the side of the page. And then certainly we have some newer ad types like the rising star, homepage takeovers, things of that nature. So we really get into how much budget does a client have for creative and which creative types are going to do the job for the client's goals. Another point for consideration in the media planning process is definitely tracking. So we work very closely with our clients to identify how we're going to track the success of the campaign. And that means we have to identify everything from what types of URLs we're going to use. UTM codes will definitely be applied, which is a little piece of code that we add to the URLs to be able to know exactly which media drove the consumer to your website. So we really dig in on tracking and how we're going to track all the way to the back end of the client's system. So if it's an e-com site, it's pretty straightforward because the sale will just pop out on the other side, and tools like Shopify and Magento, for example, all have built-in tracking that work with the media. In other instances, we're generating leads and we're dumping that data to a tool like Salesforce. And so we work with our clients pretty closely to understand what the setup is on their end and how we'll evaluate return on investment for them and how we're going to measure that. Another thing we do during the media planning process is we identify the message. This goes alongside with the target audience research. What is the message? Is it a promotion? Is it a sales message? Is it a Memorial Day sale? Is it a Christmas sale? How are we talking to the audience? What are we talking to them about? In some cases, this even allows us to do contextual targeting. So being able to take a piece of creative and put it next to an editorial piece that is contextually relevant can help your ads perform better than if they're not next to something that's contextually relevant. If you were selling a product or a service to a new home buyer, you might put that ad next to an article about new trends in interior design as a way to have better contextual relevancy for your ads. We would do things like audit competitors. We can see what competitors are spending. We can even get directional information on where they're placing their media spends. That can be indicative of what kind of media is working for a competitor, and then we can use that intelligence to decide how it might influence our own media plan. You would also certainly look at messaging and how you want your messaging to stack up against competitors' ads and promotions. They might have a Memorial Day promotion that they run every single year of 20% off, and so maybe you look to come into the market as a new entrant with 25 or 30% off. Where are they placing their ads, and how frequently are they placing ads in certain markets may indicate to us that those are successful markets for a product or service like this, and so we may want to be heavy in similar markets. Doing that kind of market research can really inform us about how we should behave. There are a myriad of tactics that we can consider when we're building out a media plan and placing our media buys. And those tactics vary and range from client to client. The self-service platform, addressable TV. There's also programmatic advertising. And if you're just doing what I'll call old-fashioned media buys, you're really missing a lot of opportunity to be efficient and effective with your ads and specifically target your audience. Technically, the answer is no. On Google Ads, on Facebook Ads, on Instagram, LinkedIn, all these self-serve platforms, you certainly can go in and spend $50, $100, right? But it's not going to do much and it's not going to work. Probably a waste of time and money and effort to set those ads up. Generally speaking, we want to start with a few $1,000s a month. This will give us an opportunity to really let the algorithm, so the Google Ads algorithm, the Facebook algorithm, the Instagram algorithm, wherever we're buying, we will, with a few $1,000s, at least have enough money to let those algorithms understand what it is that we're trying to accomplish with these ads, and let those algorithms optimize to the goals that we've set within those platforms. Starting with much less than that, we generally don't recommend for most businesses. Is it impossible? No. Is it recommended? Probably not. Bidding in the media buying process refers to the opportunity to bid a certain amount that you're willing to pay for a click or for an impression. It's kind of like an auction-based system. Hey, I'm willing to pay X per click for this keyword, for example. While it sounds simple and like you should be able to determine what you would pay per click, most of these tools, in fact, I think all of them now, will recommend a bid to you to be successful. Just because you're willing to pay $10, if there's competitors that are willing to pay $50 or $60 for a click, if you're not competitive in that bid, your ad just won't be shown as much as their ad. In other platforms, you can bid on a CPM basis. So there are programmatic ad platforms we use where we can bid on a cost per 1,000 impressions. So in that model, you're bidding for what you're willing to pay for somebody to see your ad, not to necessarily take action on it, but just to see your ad. So of course, COVID has changed the world and how we behave. Although at the time of the recording of this, people are getting vaccinations in the US, life as normal is starting to resume a little bit. Certainly we did see drastic changes in buying behavior and in internet consumption behavior throughout the COVID pandemic lockdowns. And even as lockdowns began to lift, how people interacted with the web changed, right? So people were on their screens more during lockdown than they've been subsequently. And so we've had to pay really close attention to just overall media consumption, and how people are spending has changed pretty drastically. One thing we saw coming out of the end of 2020 is that it looks like people are much more price sensitive and promo sensitive than they ever were. Coming out of the pandemic, where we've had so much unemployment and so much loss, we really see that coupon hunting, bargain hunting is at an all-time high. Coupon and promo redemptions are at an all-time high. And it looks like forecasts are projecting this to continue. People have changed how they buy since the pandemic, and how much they're willing to spend on a product or service. They're much more hunting the deal than they were before the pandemic. And so that has impacted our return on ad spend for some clients and changed how we think about advertising and what kinds of promotions we put out to them and how frequently we put them out to entice them to engage with our clients' products and purchase them. So as we look ahead to the future and we try to think about what media planning buying will look like over the next year or two, or maybe even 5 years, I think we'll continue to have these self-service platforms like the Facebooks of the world and the AdWords of the world and Instagram, etc. But I think you're going to continue to see proliferation of programmatic media. It is just a really cost-efficient way to buy media. I think you'll continue to see more OTT opportunities come out and different ways to buy over-the-top media, such as on Hulu and Sling. And then we also need to think about augmented and virtual reality and how those technologies might change the creative delivery of ads. The other thing that I think will change with video and is coming is the ability to do in-video purchases. So right now, what's changed in the past few years is we see more than ever product placement in video, whether that be on YouTube or through influencers and social. And the next thing that's coming is for the consumer to be able to interact with that product. Imagine you're watching a video on YouTube and you see your favorite actress, let's say it's Jen Garner, and she has on a killer pair of Louboutins. You might be able to click right on those high heels in the video, purchase them from the video without ever leaving the video stream. As the consumer, you don't ever have to interrupt your experience with the video, and you're able to purchase those shoes. For some of us, the shopaholics in the room, this might be dangerous, as it's going to allow us to purchase faster than we ever did before. As marketers, it's going to allow us to have really engaging content and really hit consumers when they're impressed with the product, so they don't have to go look for it later.